Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Digital Nomad World weekly series. I'm Becky, and I'll be your host. And today we're going to be talking with a digital nomad love guru, Giovi Singh. Jovi, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much for having me here, Becky.
I'm so happy to have you here. I have to admit, you're the very first love guru I've ever spoken with. So I'm very excited. And from what I understand, you handle all kinds of things related to love, from helping people get out of toxic relationships to thriving after a breakup, many different things.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's good.
So I would love to get started by first hearing about how you started your digital nomad journey.
Yes, so I started my digital nomad journey it's much more different than how um how it's now. But I started my digital nomad journey in 2018, so just like 4 years ago, over 4 years ago. Um, and I started it in the place called I in a place called Chiang Mai, which is of course known so much about from the in the digital nomad world because yeah, it's kind of the birthing place, you know. So that's how I started my journey, just going to Thailand, booking a one-way flight, and just exploring how what the world has to offer, because I was in a job that I that was well paid, but I didn't really enjoy it. And I knew that there's much more to life. And I just wanted to go and in a way, like that's what I was telling people, and they never understood it. I was like, I have a calling and I want to go and find myself. So yeah, that's how it started.
That's so important. And I know you're not alone with this journey. Like you said, Chiang Mai is like the birthplace. We actually are going to come out soon with a destination guide for Chiang Mai on this show.
Yes.
So everybody keep watching. But so when you got to Chiang Mai, what happened from there? Were you already a love guru at that time?
No, that's something that happened afterwards.
Okay.
I was not a love guru. I was kind of like a lost soul, I would say. A lost soul that knew that there was something more about to life than just living, you know, then I would just following whatever everyone else is doing, because I was trying to follow what everyone else was doing, but it never really resonated with me. And then I tried a lot of things, but I never fit it in. So at that time, I was like, yeah, I want to find out what's my calling. What is it that I want to do, you know? And I don't want to being in a one place, just staying where I am, you know. I want to go and explore the world because, I would say I'm a small guy and the world is quite big. So it takes me time to explore places, you know. That's where that's what I would say, yes. And I think that's where it started. Definitely was my journey started in Thailand when I started to travel to find out more about myself.
Oh, yeah. I know also when you go and you're not sure, you've just left a job, you're looking, you're trying different things. So, how did you ultimately end up becoming a love guru?
So it's the thing about being a love guru is this is nothing. I believe it's not something that I said like, hey, I'm a love guru. It didn't start that way, you know. It's more like I was told that I'm a love guru, and it's very interesting because um when you, for example, when you let's say when you go somewhere, or when you work on yourself, or you dress very nicely, or maybe you're dressed in a specific way, and someone gives you a compliment and says, hey, you look good, and then you feel like, I didn't even try anything, just wearing something new. I didn't even think that it looks good, and then another person says that, and then you're like, okay, all right. Like first you're not sure, but then another thing, three, four, five people say that, and then you're like, okay, wait. So I think I look good, even if you don't think you look good. then you start to project it and you think, hey, I look good. Maybe you go into the mirror and you're like, hey, I look good, you know? And for me, it happened not with 5 people, but 15 to 20 different people told me the same thing. And that's what they said to me. Hey, you're kind of like a guru. And I was like what? I don't see myself as a guru. I didn't see myself at that time, you know? And so many people were just telling me, like, hey, you're kind of a guru and you spread so much love. So a friend of mine, she just told me, hey, like, you are a love guru. And that's when I started to embrace it. And I was like, wow, that's quite powerful, you know? I I wouldn't think of myself that way, but I just accepted it rather than just being like, okay, you know, it's that's what people say, but I started to embrace it. And I think that's how I became a love guru. And before, I mean, I used to call myself, because of my work, so I'm a love coach, and I used to call myself a transformational self-love coach. That's how I started. You know, when people used to ask me, "Hey, what do you do?" That's what I said. And then later, this love guru came later, and it kind of felt it was like I was chosen. You know, it didn't feel like I was picking. Like, hey, I didn't pick that that name. Someone gave it to me. A lot of people gave it to me, and yeah, that was very beautiful.
Okay, so you had this background, you were coaching, you were having these different clients and you were getting feedback and you were taking that in. And I think this is important, like listen to what people are telling you, see how it's fitting,
Yeah.
and then transform yourself as you go. So now I want to get into this, the coaching and the being a love guru part. So first of all, do you work more with men or women?
So most of my clients that I've worked with so far have specifically been women. Um, than men. Yeah, that's kind of the feedback that I've been receiving. Like, yeah, it's just women are much more in tune, you know. They want to work on themselves. For them it's all about love. Whereas men it's not so much, you know. It's not they're much not so much more accepting. And that's what's been my experience, yeah.
I think in society, it's still, not as accepted for men to seek counseling, therapy. I know it's growing. Men are going more and more to these sessions, but yeah, how about couples? Do you also work with couples?
Yes, so this is something that I recently has become a bigger demand. Actually, a lot of people have reached out to me, and I've not like officially really started, but like I was working on a program, and because I've been receiving so much feedback, so I'm planning to launch also a program. I've had consultations with like one or two couples, but excuse me. Yes, so that's where the demand is as well. When I speak to people, they're like interested, like, oh, that's something that I'll be interested in. And then later I found out that they're actually in a relationship, and it's both men and women, so they're in a relationship they want it. So yeah, that's something that's I think the demand is like there are a lot of people who are interested on this.
Yes, yeah. And as I was saying, as people start to accept more the idea of going to a coach or a counselor, even together, I think you're going to continue to see that growth. So I know we had talked before about one area you work on is helping people thrive after breakups.
Yes.
Can you share some tips with us that I'm sure everyone watching, I mean, maybe someone's lucky and they have never been through a breakup, but I feel like most of us have at least once in our lives. What are some things we can do to not make it so painful after it happens?
Yeah, so that's one of the things is basically people start to look outward after they've had like a breakup, they've gone through a relationship, and rather than just, they're trying not to be present, and it's quite painful because this thing have happened, this thing has happened, and because they've had this relationship for a long time, or this they were going through this relationship, they start to look at all the negative things rather than actually seeing what opportunity has this opened up? Let's say if they've been in a relationship and it was very toxic, right? What would happen if they stayed another 5 years, another 10 years? The duration, if they stayed longer, maybe it would have been much, much more harder. You know, that's one of the part of the things. And it's like really to thrive, it's to go inside and actually notice yourself, get to know yourself, rather than just that's a typical advice that I hear so many people, when they're with friends, it's like, oh, just find another person, you know, like neglect all your everything that you have inside you and just neglect it. And like with a lot of guys, it's it's like, okay, hey, let's go drink, let's go party, let's start drink. Don't think about it, forget it. But no one really says about it. How do you forget? Or actually, it's not the forgetting part, it's the forgiving part, because we hold on to so many things. So we just want to forget it rather than forgive it. So you let go of it and then you can move on, right? You cannot just move on with the things that is still attached to you, because, this is another thing, which is when you're together with someone, sometimes people are in love, some people sometimes fall out of love. And what's left then afterwards? It's attachment. And I think that's the main thing, is to understand what are you still attached to, because we go through so many relationships, and sometimes we don't know, like, even what's the meaning, what's love, what's the meaning of love, where do we know this? So I think that's very important to know in order to thrive.
Yeah, you mentioned too that like our relationship with ourselves. I mean, if do not have a good relationship with ourselves, it's unlikely we're going to have a great relationship long term with another person.
Yes, absolutely. If you are the only person, if someone is there, you're in a relationship, or someone is loving you, if that's what you're depending on, and that person goes away, something happens, for some reason they distance yourself from that, then you're just left by yourself, you know, and that's when the pain starts, because we're in a world right now where we just want to, the focus is not on ourselves, and it's because of the relationships we had in the past, and it always starts with family. What relationship has there been in family? And that's a lot of times is ignored. And that's one of the root causes always. So when I work with people, I always look, what's the root cause of these relationship patterns, things that have been going on? What's the root? Rather than just looking off, okay, hey, you know what? Just go find someone else. Hey, like, it's like shopping. Unfortunately, we treat relationships like shopping. You know, if we want to go dating, if you treat it like shopping, like, hey, oh, I want this. No, I don't want it. Oh, I want to swipe left. I want to swipe right. It's like we're shopping, and unfortunately, humans don't work that way. We are emotional creatures. Everyone else carries emotions, unless, of course, you're into AI, robots, but I don't think so. We've gone so far yet, that you can just pick and choose. And I think that's what's going on in the society right now. And yeah, which is like very, very long topic. Yeah.
Oh, yes, it's very deep, especially when you're talking about love and all of its aspects. You're mentioning the roots, you look for the roots and the family. How can someone change those things that are so deeply rooted in them?
How someone can change the roots that so deeply in them. So there's many ways. But the very first thing is to understand, like, okay, to understand your background. We like we are in this moment where we're living in this because there's like our ancestors, because of our ancestors, because of a couple of generations back. That's how we came from. If our parents didn't, if their parents didn't choose each other, then we wouldn't have these parents where we have right now. Then we wouldn't be alive. So it's to understand what kind of relationships did people have. So what are the relationship within our parents, to understand, like, to understand it, you know, to get an understanding of, how is their relationship going actually, You know, what, like, has there been love between them? Well, what's been the situation? You know, have they actually stayed in the marriage or just together just because of the children, just because of children, because of me? You know, that's to ask yourself, oh, what's been the situation with them? To understand that. Maybe speak to your parents, find out more about, okay, you know, how was it when I was born? So many different things that affect us because a lot of things happen during childhood. So if we don't know how the child was, we don't even know how we've developed. You know, this the very first thing is to understand how did we develop this? Whatever our patterns, our characteristics are, we don't even know them, and we just bluntly accept them. You know, it's like society gives us, we just accept them. Someone says something to us, we just accept it, but we don't understand why we accept it, or what is this characteristic. And I'm talking about not just the bad things, but also the better things, you know?
Yeah. Now I know I'm from the US, and the US is particularly famous for having a high divorce rate, especially these days, and a lot of broken families. So if someone grew up without these two parents together and they had nothing to look at or to know, what a good model would be for a relationship, how would you recommend that they find, like, where can they go to see a good model of a relationship if it was just, let's say, them and one parent while growing up?
So I think it's so one way I work is it's to really, so there's two ways. Obviously, you want to look for a role model, but also how, if you cannot find that, just think about how would it be actually? What would be a good relation? Ask yourself these questions. You know, do some research. Like, how would it be a good relationship be? What would be the attributes? And it's not only for looking into just in romantic ways, but even like your friends. You know, you can start with your friends. You know, maybe someone, I don't know, if you're a girl, like look how your guy friends are, or you know, if you're a guy, look how your girls, and just just generally even your brothers and sisters, just look at what are their attributes, what make a good relationship, and what you will find most out of times that that I experience is always the communication. That's what
Mm-hmm.
makes the biggest change is the communication. Because, like I said, like if two people are in a relationship, it, either they're still in love or one of them falls out of love, and it's always most of the time happens because there's no communication. So one person thinks, oh, we're still in a relationship. The other person thinks, hey, I'm not even in a relationship with them anymore. I'm not in love with them anymore. So that's, I think, one of the main things is to understand what are the characteristics, to understand what's the meaning of love. You know, what's the meaning for me for love? Like, what is it? And that's one of the ways. And then look at that, like people, like maybe speak to a professional, or you know, look into what, like on YouTube, or there's so many different resources where we can find about how actually relationships work, you know. So look into them. If you cannot find obviously a good someone with a, you know, who has a good relationship, but if you have a model of some marriages where it actually worked really well, speak to them. And one key thing that you will always find is always the people who, you know, they had the relationships the most. So that's, God bless our elderly people, you know, like the grandparents, you know, ask them, go speak to them, because they have been together for such a long time. You know, they haven't had a divorce, they were still together, and look, and then speak to them, find about them. And that's where you actually find the answers. And I think that's a huge gap that we have in society, that, you know, the younger people do not actually communicate with the older people. You know, this is what we have a very huge gap. So that's why we are not unable to learn, because there's not such a bridge that we can speak to, I don't know, our grandparents, or maybe to someone else, an elderly person, and find out about them, what's been their success. You know, what's their success formula? Why are they still together? Why are they so charming to each other? Why are they holding hands with each other? Maybe they're like 80, 90 years old, you know? And rather than just going back to the people that have unfortunately like failed relationships, or their relationships are not so great. Look at both of them, not just one. Not just listen to your friends and they're like, oh yeah, you should do this and that, and then you find out that they even don't have a good relationship between themselves. And your friends circle someone, they're in a relationship. So I think that's very, very important.
Yeah, these are such great tips. And what I'm hearing from you too is like, don't just go and ask one question or get, a quick answer. Really drill down if you really want to work on yourself and find good models for the next relationship that you have. Ask them so many questions if you can, and sit down with them and really, hey, take notes if it's going to help you to learn how to
Yes,
break
100%.
out of the pattern, or the perhaps like just the unfortunate circumstances you were born into. A lot of it is just you're born into this unfortunate situation and there is a chance to get out of it.
Yes, 100%. And one thing I want to add to this, it's also that's what I do quite a lot of times, is to actually connect with yourself. You know, this is the main thing. A lot of times we are seeking all the answers outside without actually asking for the inside. What's
Yeah.
inside of you? We don't even ask that. You know, we don't even get, and that's tuning into, rather than just here, going to your heart, because that's where you carry so many more answers than just here. If you're only using one part, that's dangerous. If you're just using the mind, that's dangerous, because your mind can be filled with so many different things. It's so much fear. So it depends what do you lead with. So I think that's so, so important.
Yeah, the mind can trick you very easily.
Yes.
Yeah. So you mentioned before the friends that just tell you, "Oh, go find someone else." Do you recommend, if you get out of a relationship, especially a toxic one, do you recommend being alone for a little while before you find a new person? Or is it better if you just go and find a new person to forget the pain?
Well, it depends what do you carry from the last relationship? How long has it been? What's that's the main. If you've been together with someone for, let's say, see, like, there's a lot of factors into this, but like, yeah, it's like, how long have you actually been with that person together? And I don't mean for years, but in that present. you know there's so many different factors, so I cannot give you one answer to this. But specifically, like, yeah, it's good to spend some time with yourself, to get to know yourself, to know what you want, and actually, even more bigger, to know what you don't want. A lot of times, we've been told, uh, in the mainstream, or when you look into this topic, it's always like, oh, you have to know what you want, you know and that's good, but you also have to know what you don't want. And for that, it's so important to just go back and do a reflection. It's like you're reading a book, right? For example, you're reading a book and you are watching a movie, but you're actually in this movie right now. And then you want to snap out of it and then forget everything what happens. And when I work uh, with people, it's always like there's always a specific pattern that a lot of my clients, they go into a relationship and it ends up the same way. Why? Because you go into the relationship, but you don't want to learn. That's different things. So there's no reflection of what happened inside the relationship. What am I learning from this? I'm out of this relationship. What am I learning from this? If there's nothing I've learned, then guess what? It will repeat itself. There's a very good chance it will repeat itself. So I definitely recommend, like, you know, is to go and spend some time with yourself. Definitely go. Don't go just in another relationship. But even if you go into another relationship, put yourself in the priority. Put yourself in the priority to know more about you. Look into the mirror. A lot of people don't look into the mirror. Go and look into the mirror and see, who are you? Who were you? And what have you become? So, so important.
Yes, reflection is so important. Now, these people you mentioned that you're working with, I'm wondering if you can share some success stories that your clients have had anonymously, of course.
Yes, yes, sure. So I've had success stories. Like I can think of one client um, right now, which goes around as the subject what I talked with. It's like so client that I was working with, uh, they were having a lot of, they were coming into me for me, and basically the help what they wanted was to help with their dating. And I specifically when I speak to people, I tell them like I'm not a person who will help you with yeah, like people don't usually come usually to me just for like dating. I'm not, I can't give you like, I will not give you tips. I will not tell you to use this line or say that line. What I will do is I help people to change who they are, because you cannot be the same person and expect the same results. You have to be someone else. So this client came to me regarding dating, and um, every time like this person was connecting with someone, they were always in a situation where it was not the right person. And actually, they were in a very, very dark place because they started attracting people coming into life that were very harmful, very,
Mhm.
very toxic, relationships where even it involved, abuse, physical abuse, even, you know, physical, emotional, mental abuse. So I help them to actually learn from it by going by using I call it the heart approach, heart to heart approach, and we dive really deeper to understand, okay, what's been actually the root of their relationship. Well, what's the root? Why are they attracting these kind of people, these kind of toxic people? And we found out, there were so many different things, but one of the things that I taught them is to set the boundaries, you know and I call them like boundaries. I are like borders, right? We all imagine if we're all in a country, we all have borders, right? Some people can cross specific things, some people cannot, but just know what your borders are, what your boundaries are. And that's what I applied with them. And now, like every time, you know they're they're looking for someone, like they if they want to connect with someone, their awareness is much, much more higher. And they're so, so happy. They're so grateful because they're not now with people who will harm them. They're in a safe environment, safe space. And that's what you create by just working on yourself or working on these things. So, yeah, I'm super, super grateful for them to make the changes. And it's very beautiful to see, how this is what they came for, and you know this is what the result was. This is how they're really thriving right now, and they're the ones in control, not the other way.
I love that story. Thank you for sharing. I'm so glad that this person found you before more harm was
Yes.
potentially done. Just overall, what I hear about love from you is that it's so important for self-love. You need to really look at yourself, really reflect, and every time you're in a new relationship or thinking about the next one, it's important to even have a checklist, have your boundaries, and yes, be ready, but love yourself first and focus on yourself.
Yes, I think that's very important. Self-love is important, but it's also to accept the person who you've become, or work towards
Mhm.
what you want to be. Love is something. It's a continuous process. It's not something, hey, now I found this person, that's it. you know
Mhm.
it's for in the society that we live in, it's become much more subjective because of all the technology, these apps. There's so many different apps now, which are, by the way, I'm not against any apps, but if that's the only thing that you're using and you're not getting results, then there's something more deeper there. You know, that's the thing. That's why majority of these apps don't work for everyone. You know, that's why we have so many. Some people do not find love, and it's more to know, like, having that self-love, but also like I was saying, like reflection, but actually to know yourself so good, so well. you know so where you stand, that's important, to know where you are, where do you stand, so you don't just love yourself, but also where you are, the place that you are, where you're standing. So it's everything is love. Like, yeah, that's how, if you speak to anyone, it's all about relationships. It's all about love, because that's who we are. Every one of us is love.
Yes, and we're all capable of love and being loved.
Yes.
I'm wondering, so is being a love guru now your full-time job as when you're in the digital nomad life, or because I'm wondering how you find clients and if it's possible to be a
Yes.
coach as your full-time
Yes.
gig.
Yes, definitely. So this is my full-time, um my work, my passion. That's what I'm super passionate about, and so that's what I do full time. So even when I'm traveling, like, you know, um, the beautiful thing that we have Zoom. So I have usually most of the time my sessions always online. You know, um, and yeah, it's so flexible and so convenient, and you could help anyone from anywhere in the world. That's what I have clients all over the world, that I help, like in the States, in Norway, like really everywhere in the world, and it's a blessing to help someone from just someone who's on another continent, to help them with their life, and then yeah, just share that with everyone else. It's very beautiful. Yeah.
I'm so excited to hear that and keep spreading the love, Giovi.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and if people want to follow you or seek your
Yeah.
advice, where can they go?
Yes, so I do not spread out so much on social media, like on too many platforms. I keep it very, very centered. And the only social media that I use right now personally is Facebook. So if you want to, find me on Facebook and want to connect with me, definitely, I would advise you that I have a lot of content that I've put out, really a lot of free content. I do trainings. So if you need any help, like, please do reach out. And you can find me on Facebook, under my name. So Giovi Singh. So that's Giovi and Singh. So it's Giovi and not Jovi, So Jovi as like Giovanni, like the
Oh,
short
yes.
short version of Giovanni. Yeah. 'Cause I have a
We
lot of
we will
people
put
in
the
there.
link.
So
We'll make sure we get the right link to put in our description as well so people can find you.
yeah.
But
Yes.
thank you again, Jovi. And it's so nice to talk to a love guru and get some guidance here. And I hope that everybody watching feels like hopeful for their future love connections, the ones they're already in. There's always an opportunity to improve yourself and your connections with other people.
Yes, 100%. It's all about connection, you know? That's so important. So thank you so much, Becky. I really appreciate you for inviting me for this.
Thank you. It was so nice to talk with you, Jovi. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.